Families. In this video, I would like to describe for you how we do grades in science and what you can do to support your students and just better understand how they earn the grade that they earn in science class. To begin, I have my Canvas page opened up in a student view. I don't have the ability to do it in a parent or observer view, but this is probably the closest that we're going to get. So the first thing that I want to show you is that on our homepage in Canvas every week, we have the assignments that we're doing for the week, and they are listed in this calendar down below. And in any of these weeks that go from most recent to least recent, there are things you can click on, such as the teacher slides for the week, and this will link you right to the slides I'm using with the students in class. We're working on our astronomy project, so here's a link to the overview document and other materials that students may need as they are participating in class on a daily basis. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of this semester. The other thing I want to point out is that I do have a YouTube channel. The videos are not fantastic, but they are put together for your students specifically to help them if they aren't understanding a concept or if they just need to spend a little bit more time practicing or reviewing, or even if they have to be absent. So, just so you know, there are things that you can access through this playlist that will support your students. Now, if you try to go into grades, it is so hard to understand. I have tried and tried to make it as streamlined as possible, and it is still just so hard. Um, what I'll point out though is that when you look at grades in the upper right hand corner, regardless of the display you're in, you should be able to see their percentage and then that the letter grade that equates to. Then you can have your assignments. You could do it by assignment group. You can do it by due date. You can do it by module or by name. I tend to do it by assignment group. And I can look through and I can see that some of these have a score 1 or 0 out of 1. And I keep going down and I can see all these different things. It looks like there's some link here. Um, this icon right here represents a rubric that is associated, and I can continue going down. Then I start seeing things like missing or a check mark. There's all of these things out of 4. It's just really hard to tell what's going on. One thing I will point out is that the from grades, the things you want to look at are the assignment group that says standards to determine your grade. Anything else does not count for a grade. And yes, it's evidence of whether or not they've shown proficiency in the standard, but the assessment or the activity or whatever it is does not actually affect the overall percentage. So, for example, on this seasons test, our unit 3, this is an astronomy assignment. So, it was a test and it was used to determine proficiency, but this 8 out of 12 doesn't count for anything in the grade book. So, if I open up the rubric here, I can see that my student or this fictitious student here earned proficiency in 2 of the standards and not one of them. Okay. The other place you can look is the Learning Mastery gradebook. So I'm right now in the Assignments tab. If you go to the Learning Mastery, you will see that the standards are divided by unit. So we have our astronomy, magnetism, and then our research project. For the astronomy unit, there were 4 standards. There were 4 standards in our magnetism unit. And then there are 7 standards in our big research project that we've been working on now for several months on and off in class. The difficulty is that if I open this up, I can see very easily with these 4 assignments, this not mastered, 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 and not mastered. So mastered just simply means they've demonstrated grade level proficiency and they will get the point for the standard. So they will get the 1 out of 1. For these 2 out of 4 or a 1 out of 4 or a 0 out of 4, that means that they are not yet showing grade level proficiency. So they are doing things that are important to get there, but if you imagine it like a ladder, they just haven't quite gotten to where they need to be on that ladder. And of course, this ladder would be infinite because learning is never done. So a 3 or a 4 are both considered grade level proficiency, and so those would both equal a point. Now, if you get down to the research project, it's a little bit more tricky because it just says not mastered, not mastered. And you can't really tell, well, what does that mean? Does that mean my child was not yet showing proficiency, or does it mean that it hasn't been turned in yet? So this little indicator here says 2 alignments. If I click, I can see that these are the 2 ways that your child or your student may be assessed on this particular standard, again, as evidence of proficiency. And you can see here it says not yet assessed, not yet assessed. I have to put all of the standards in to the Learning Mastery Gradebook before students even have to turn in the assignments. And so right now, nobody has turned in any of the assignments except for a few people have gotten one of them in so far. Okay, so what else could you do that's easier? I think I figured it out. I think it's the assignments. And here's why. If you show the assignment by type, then you'll be able to just look at the standards to determine your grade in science. And you can look and see what your student has done. So, for example, there are the 5 standards for our magnetism unit, because I have taken each standard for each unit. They are embedded within assessments that give me evidence of your student's proficiency, but then I've taken each individual standard and separated it out so that students can see exactly what it is that they're not yet showing proficiency in, and that's where they want to focus their energy. They don't have to retake an entire test. They don't have to redo an entire research project. They just have to find, what standard did I not yet meet, and what do I need to do to get there? I'll give you an example. If I look at, for example, this forces standard back in our magnetism unit, if I look underneath, let me back up and say, with the standards, you can see the points that your students got if you're in assignments. So this pretend student, got 1 out of 1. That means they met standard. You might be curious to know, were they a 3, which is grade level, or did they go beyond, which is a 4? Absolutely, that's really fun to see. But you don't need to see that. Then if you look at this one here, 0 out of 1, that means that they've turned something in, they've attempted proficiency, and they didn't get there yet. Now, again, you can go kind of sleuthing and look in the Learning Mastery Gradebook to see, were they approaching standard, were they beginning proficiency, or did they just not even demonstrate yet any proficiency? They didn't provide any evidence of proficiency. So they're not even on the ladder, so to speak. You can get those details if you want. But perhaps if you're a busy parent like me, you might just want to know, did they do it or not? So, for example, this student did not yet show proficiency. So if I open up this particular standard, I'm going to see information that I need. Okay, so I can read a little bit about what this standard is related to. Then I try to make videos for almost every standard. So if a student isn't able to show proficiency yet, they should watch this video. Then these are the public documents that we had up in the class when we were doing the unit that may be helpful for them when they're trying to answer their question. And then this is the rubric. So this is what they need to be able to do right here to get proficiency. If they're a level 2 or a 1 or no evidence, these are the things that they're doing. And again, these are asset based because this is really complex. Science is hard because it requires such abstract thinking and it requires the synthesis of so many ideas. And so I think we should celebrate that we're on the ladder and that we're making our way. And in order for a grade to communicate what a student can do at grade level, I need to give this valid feedback. So if a student has not yet shown proficiency, this is where they need to be. When I go back to look at some of the research, for example, I've started to do better at putting these things together. Let me see. There was one that I wanted to show you. Okay, so analyzing and interpreting data. So I tried to get a more consistent format. So it now has the rubric at the beginning. Then these are the opportunities to show what you know. So we did our seasons test. And if the student did not yet show proficiency, they can just do a revision on whatever standard. They might also be able to show proficiency in this research project that they're doing. So, in another way. Then, to learn more, they could look at this sheet, they can watch this tutorial video, and all of these things are there to support them. So, I think that does it. So, if your child got a grade on their progress report that you're not feeling satisfied with, or they want to improve, these are the ways that from home you can support them in reaching that grade level proficiency. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, and I hope this helps.